Hi everyone, I am Jiayu Zhu from Shanghai Jiaotong University. The paper I will be presenting today is titled Guided Deep Testing of X.509 Certificate Validation via Coverage Transfer Graph, and this is a joint work with Chen, Peng Bo, Yuting, and Zhen Dong. Firstly, let me introduce our motivation. Certificate validation checks an X.509 certificate whether its subject and the public key it contains are trustworthy. An X.509 certificate is a signed data structure that binds the public key to a person, computer, or organization, like the left figure shows, containing a TPS certificate, a signature algorithm, and a signature. Certificate validation is composed of three components. The certificate parsing is responsible for parsing the certificates in a repository for constructing a certificate chain. It also recognizes the fields and the extensions of each certificate on the certificate chain when the chain is validated. Chain construction is responsible for connecting a sequence of certificates from the root certificate to the end entity ones, and each one having signed the next certificate. Chain validation validates each certificate on the chain successively, checking its digital signature validity period and so on. Constraints specified in certificate extensions, such as the name constraints, policy constraints, and so on, are also applicable to chain validation. One simple and mainstream method to test the certificate validation is mutation-based fuzzing test. Two state-of-the-art testing techniques are Transcert and MuCert. Transcert randomly crossovers two or more certificates, and while MuCert randomly diversifies the test certificates in a test suite and using ACC, a cumulative code coverage to approximate its diversity. The higher the ACC value, the more diverse a test suite. However, there are two limitations here. Firstly, three components are interleaved with each other, making it difficult to deeply test the certificate validation. Secondly, both Transcert and MuCert take some random strategies to mutate certificates, expecting the test suite to be diverse and some corner cases to appear by random. Thus, it cannot guarantee the diversity of the test certificates. To solve the limitations I mentioned, we propose the coverage transfer graph. Coverage transfer graph abstracts test certificates into a set of coverage vertices, and the certificate mutation into a set of coverage transfers. Here, each vertex represents a unique coverage value and corresponds to a set of test cases hitting this value, while each coverage transfer, which we say edges, are established if some seed with a coverage is mutated to a mutant with another coverage statistics. Like the figure shows, here we use the code coverage statistics like line or branch coverage to approximate the execution path. That means if the two certificates are likely to traverse the same or similar execution path, then they have the same coverage information. Transcert directs the mutation process via coverage transfer graphs. Firstly, we construct a coverage transfer graph by collecting coverage information of seed certificates on reference certificate validators. Then we pick up a certificate sample from the test suite. Thirdly, we mutate the chosen cert to a new cert, and then we validate the new cert on validator and collect the coverage information, and add the new cert into the test suite and update the graph. The above steps are repeated, allowing the test suite to increase and the coverage transfer graph to be updated dynamically. Then the certificate mutants are used to differently test the certificate validation in SSL TLS implementations, and the validation differences when reviewed can be a hint for finding defects in one or more SSL or TLS implementations. To deeply test the certificates, we have two optimization strategies. One is on-the-fly testing to cut the propagation of redundant differences. If one certificate can trigger any validation difference, then it is immutable and it will not be chosen for the further mutation. Another one is performing extension-specific mutations on an established chain. We conducted experiments to answer the following questions. First one, how sufficient are the Transcert generated certificates in testing X.509 certificate validation? The second question, how diverse are the Transcert generated certificates? And the third one, how effective and efficient are the Transcert generated certificates in revealing certificate validation differences among SSL or TRS implementations? And the final question, what are the root causes? To answer these four research questions, we conduct 5 datasets and use the following metrics. As the result shows, the 5 test suites are not of significant differences in covering the source code of OpenSSL. The diversities of MCert and FCert are higher than that of T-cert, but MCert's high diversity is contributed by its small size, and F-cert's diversity can decrease and be lower than that of T-cert after 26,000 iterations. T-cert 1 reveals 3,469 validation differences, each time as many differences as those revealed by F-cert and MCert. Transcert outperforms Transcert by 6.5 in revealing unique validation differences within 1 hour. We have identified 11 root causes to validation differences, all of which have been confirmed and 5 of which have never been reported previously. Our certificates reveal that the primary goal of certificate chain validation is inappropriately presented in RFC 5280. As stated in RFC 5280, the primary goal of path validation to verify the bindings between a subject distinguishing name or subject alternative name and subject public key. However, SSL or TRS implementation may falsely validate bogus certificates without subject names nor subject alternative name extensions. It implies that the goal of chain validation is to verify the binding between a subject and a key rather than that between the subject's names and the key. We reported a technical error to the IETF PKIX group. The group responded that the inconsistent terminology and misuse of or and or cause misunderstandings. IFC 5280 should state that the primary goal of path validation to verify the binding between the subject identifiers and the subject public key info. To sum up, I firstly listed 2 limitations of existing methods and proposed our method Transcert based on coverage transfer graph. Then, I evaluated Transcert against with other 2 existing methods. T-cert 1 reveals 8 times as many differences as those revealed by F-cert and M-cert. Besides, we summarized the root causes to validation differences and find inappropriate state of primary goal in RFC 5280. That's all.